Good afternoon. No, wait, that is the wrong one, right? No, I'm sorry, I'm not Kodiak. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the F1 2017 AOR Hype Energy F1 League PC Season 15, round number 7, the Hungarian Grand Prix. In case you're surprised, my name is Thompson. I will be substituting for Kodiak and Hamish for tonight, and with me in the commentary box for tonight is Julio Massa. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
So I hope we haven't jump scared anyone who thought they might have clicked the wrong stream. This actually is PCF1, and we'll just get into things. So tonight's race is the Hungarian Grand Prix at the Hungaroring. It's round number 7. So we are closing halfway point in this season. The Hungaroring is a quite short lap, 4.3 kilometers, 14 turns. Very high downforce, or reasonably high downforce, and somewhat tricky to overtake at some points, but as usual, we expect an exciting race, I think.
Yeah, they call this track Monaco without barriers, without any reason. They don't call it. And this is, as you said, relatively high downforce track. Only one long straight, the start-finish straight, and not many overtaking opportunities. But as we have these great guys here, we might be treated to a good race today.
Yeah, definitely, and we'll just have a look at the standing, which I also have to get familiar with. So in the lead,
Brendan Lee is the championship leader.
Yeah, with 4 wins and 2 second places in 6 races, so he leads by 36 points to Danny in second, who is on 100 points.
100 exactly.
100 exactly. Brennan's teammate Timp in third with 64 is already quite a bit behind.
Yeah, he's on. I think I've written it. Yeah, he's on 64 points. So that's quite a long way behind. Also, we have only 3 race winners in this season. Fabrizio Donoso with a win in Azerbaijan, but he's 5th in the championship on 43 points.
Yeah, so Brendan definitely on top form at the moment. So we'll have to wait and see if he can continue that winning streak. And we are still waiting for the lobby to actually start, and it does so now. So at least I got the timing right this time, and yeah, usually it's a bit of a squeeze to get all the information in before qualifying actually starts. So good evening to everybody who is watching, and that is quite a few more people than we usually have on F2. So
yeah.
So hello to everyone who is watching, and come on, loading screen. I'd like to get going because I'm very much excited for this race.
Oh, me too, man. Me too. We have few absent drivers today. I've also noted them. Max AFC is absent. Also, Failer is absent. Who else is there? Sam is absent, and that's what I know right now. But we have 14 drivers,
so there must be more missing than the 4 that I know of. So yeah, absolutely correct assumption there that there are a few people missing. But nevertheless, we should have an exciting fight, especially at the front. And I could see a Mercedes go out as one of the first cars.
That's Brendan Lee.
That's the car of Brendan Lee, yeah. And Timp, his teammate, will follow him now.
Mm-hmm. And also Marcel Kiefer going out for India. It's vital to find a good track position here. The track is so short, so narrow. The dirty air will also play some effect on their laps. So these out laps are quite important for them, to say the least.
Yeah, it's important to get all the car parameters, so like tires and brakes, engine into the right temperature window, and then have the optimal grip in tires and brakes for your flying lap.
Yeah, of course, the red super soft tires are in the use unless someone wants to try and play a little bit tactically. We don't know what's the weather, at least for now. The drivers, of course, know the weather, so they can play strategically, but as far as I can see, well, everyone is on those red wall super soft tires.
And now the first few drivers are starting their laps, just on board with Brendan Lee here, who's now crossed the line.
Yeah, Brendan Lee goes down into turn 1. I think I saw a little bit of lockup, but that might have been just a game. The air is wide open going into turn 3 now. Oh, turn 2 actually, I'm sorry. I messed it up. A little bit sideways out of turn 2, and Brendan Lee goes down into turn 3 and up the hill into turn 4. Who else? Only Steve, I think that's how you read his nickname, is the last one who came out of the pit lane for his warm-up lap.
And I'll just have to do a quick fix here, so I'll be with the slideshow for a second here.
Okay. And I think Marcel Kiefer is going to be the first one who... Oh no, it's Brendan Lee now with a 1:16.1. That's the first time on board. Now let's see. Kiefer is the second guy who will cross the finish line, and he's 4/10 off. Now it's Fulton in P3, 16.6. And
we're back with pictures.
Okay, that's Carrick's only 0.02 of a second behind Marcel Kiefer in P3 for now. But there are going to be more cars. It's Bono Huis in P5 right now. I'm lost track a little bit. Non-runner in P6, but that's 1.1 seconds off the pace set by Brendan Lee for now.
And I'm just having a look if I can find any drivers who are on flying laps at the moment. Formula Danny is one of them in the Sauber, just going through the middle sector there. And Mark and Tim actually in the pits. Just a little observation here. So they will be going out at a later time, I guess.
Yes, and Brendan Lee improves further, 1:16.0 for him.
So yeah, very good time there.
He is on a 3-race... Yeah, that's a very good time. He is on a 3-race winning streak, and he's looking to extend it into 4-race long streak. That's quite a difficult word for me, I'm sorry. And Marcel Kiefer is just 0.04 of a second behind him.
Yeah, so definitely very close at the front. 2 is still on flying lap. Looks like Mr. Hamilton is now coming around the final corner to complete a lap. What time can he set? And he's actually starting his flying lap now, so false alarm there. So most people going into the pits now, except Marek and Timp, who are actually leaving the pits now, and will stay with Mr. Hamilton, who is on a flying lap in that Williams.
Yes, he's now going up to turn 4. Very fast blind left-hander. Very easy to run wide here as we go now through turn 5. A long right-hander up the hill still into the chicane. Very tricky, very understeery chicane. Easy to hit the bumps and lose the car here. And now the middle sector. Turns that are leading into each other. Turn 9, then turn 10. The track starts to open up a bit. Turn 11 now. Very long, very quick one.
Oh, and that was a big moment of oversteer there for Thomas Hamilton. Coming through that fast right hand, and that will have cost him a huge amount of time. And he has now only the final turn to negotiate. So
and he comes into the pit lane.
Yeah, he aborted that lap due to that mistake in the middle sector.
Yes, and he is very low on fuel, as I can see, or that may be a game glitch. But as I'm seeing, it's very low on fuel, so maybe that's also a thing. Got a little bit quiet on track. Fulton is back on track with us. I think Fabrizio is back. Yeah, Fabrizio is coming back to the pit lane without any fuel on board. And the same with Formula Danny.
Ooh, and Tim ran a bit wide there. If he is lucky. And again, he was a bit wide there. Guess maybe his lap could be invalidated if he is unlucky.
Yeah, especially that one out of turn 11. That's a place where usually the game
and he also comes in.
Penalizes you. Yeah. So probably he got that lap invalidated.
And Marek now crossing the line, and he sets a 1 minute 16.3, which puts him P4 for the moment.
That's a very good lap for the Renault driver.
So, looks like Photon just started a flying lap in the Sauber. So let's see what he can do. Currently in P10, 6/10 of pole position time. So wait and see how much he can improve. Unfortunately, I didn't get a split time, or no delta. So we'll have to wait and see until he completes the lap to see whether he can improve or not. And just got a question. So where Kodiak and Hamish actually are this weekend. So
Hamish is in Monaco.
Hamish is in Monaco, and Kodiak is not in Monaco, but jealous that he isn't. But yeah. Kodiak's also away. So they will be back next weekend for the Belgian Grand Prix.
Yeah, and we'll be usually
and
back
Photon sets a
F2.
1:16.2, which puts him in P3 for now. Again, another solid lap and a good improvement of 4/10.
Yeah, and only 19 thousandths of a second ahead of his teammate. But a very good lap. I think I've seen Tim going out of the pit lane, yes. So, seems like everyone is coming out of the pit lane for their final attempts, of course. Again, red super soft tires on the cars. As we are only we only have 2 minutes to go with this in this session. It's Brendan Lee who will now start his final qualifying attempt. And Marcel Kiefer follows.
Yeah, so Marcel Kiefer is about 2/3 of a sector behind Brendan Lee, so Brendan will have the first shot, and then Kiefer can try and beat whatever Brendan sets for him. Obviously, we still have other drivers that are there, but those two are so close at the moment, so every 100th of a second. And Brendan just went straight in the chicane. I don't know why exactly. So he must have aborted his lap. And because he went straight means he won't be able to set another time, I think. Because if he did get a warning for that, His next lap might get invalidated as well.
Or he might have a little bit, still some fuel on board. We have 40 seconds to go. Unless he didn't get penalized for both laps, he is clear to go. So,
Looks like he is, because he just started another flying lap with just 30 seconds remaining in the session. And I think Marcel Kiefer might have had the same strategy.
yeah, and he didn't improve. And Photon is out of the session after he finished his lap.
And Mr. Hamilton and Timp still without time as the session now comes to an end.
Well, looks like Mr. Hamilton wasn't wide anywhere, so...
And a driver whose name I probably won't pronounce properly all evening, Stiv, has pulled off to the side. Just gonna have a big guess. And
yeah, Fabrizio Donoso is also out. Look at Mr. Hamilton.
yeah, and that time came out of nowhere. He didn't have a time on the board yet. Now he sets a 116 point flat, just 2/1000ths of a second faster than Marcel Kiefer. Meanwhile, Brendan Lee is coming around the last corner to finish his final flying lap. Can he get into the 15s? Yes, he can, with 115.8. What can Marcel Kiefer do about that? He has one more corner to go with his Force India. Can he beat Brendan Lee, or can he only beat Hamilton? Can he beat any of those two? And it's only first row, but 115.8 for him as well, only 4/100ths of a second slower than Bamley in first. And Tim finishes in fourth. Formula Danny and Carrick's in the pits, and that is everybody through qualifying.
Two guys with amazing times, only separated by 38 thousandths of a second. That is going to be a great race. I'm sure these guys are so close. Anyway, and I'm seeing now a crash between AI cars. That's great.
And I've just been instructed to call him Steve, so we'll do that.
Easy. That's easier way.
So we're waiting for the session to end, and probably waiting for Carrick's, who hasn't retired in the pit lane, which causes the session to not end.
Mm-hmm.
But as expected, very close at the front.
Yeah, and the guys in P3 and P4 are also not that long way behind. Also, it's very important to say that non-runner in P14 is only almost a second behind Brendan Lee, but still within a second. So these gaps are so small.
Yes, we are definitely looking at the best drivers here in AOR PC. That is for sure. And now we've got 3 seconds remaining in the session, and then we'll go to the race. So this is the qualifying results then for you. Brendan Lee on pole position with 115.8, closely followed by Marcel Kiefer. Mr. Hamilton with a good lap on position 3. Joining him in the second row is Tim Photon, and Danny with a Hungarian third row. Carrick's in 7th, Marek in P8, Aresi in 9th, Bonoise in P10. And that's the results then gone. And we'll wait for the race start, and I expect a very close race at the front.
Let's see what the weather will be, because we know our luck in F2, where we've had a lot of wet races. So let's see how it'll be in F1.
So at the moment it is dry.
Oh, okay.
So we'll wait for everybody to get ready. 25 seconds to go.
I think I see soft tires in Tim's pit box. So that might be a hint of his strategy.
Alright, and the last few seconds, and we are getting ready to race. Now looking at the starting grid, 4 lights, 5 lights. They're going to hold them for an age, and lights out, and away we go. Looks like the front runners all got a good start. Brendan Lee already going to the inside to defend from Marcel Kiefer. Mr. Hamilton trying to go round the outside. Now Brendan Lee, Marcel Kiefer side by side. Brendan can stay ahead, and now Marcel Kiefer is under pressure from Timp behind in the second Mercedes, and Timp having a look now to the inside, turns to the outside. Marcel Kiefer get a bit tail happy there, running a bit wide. That's a Ferrari that's gone off very wide there, and looks like it was reasonable clean starts for now.
Yeah, exactly. No collisions, at least for now. And very good start from Timp. Very good start from Timp. Kiefer is now half a second behind Brendan Lee already. So Brendan Lee is building a little bit of a gap now. Timp is just on, well, not now. Very wide guys are going through turn 11. There will be some warnings for that.
And looks like as we come to the end of lap 1, everybody has slot into a single file procession, but soon DRS will be opened and people will try to make their move to the front of the field, whereas Brendan will try to run away with that lead, although I'd hazard to guess that Marcel Kiefer will try to do everything to make Brendan's life as difficult as possible.
These gaps are so small right now that we might see a 14-car train using DRS just in few seconds time. Maybe not seconds, but as DRS opens. Well, apart from Brendan Lee, who's having a great pace at the front right now.
Yeah, he's utilizing the clean air that he has as the only car in the field at the moment, and he has pulled a gap of about 1 second to Marcel in P2.
Yeah, very, very good pace at the first 2 laps, set by Brendan Lee. Let's see how it will unfold later on.
And of course Brendan sets the first fastest lap of the race on 1:19.2, and DRS has been enabled, so everybody except Marcel Kiefer and Brendan Lee will have DRS if the gaps stay as they are until the end of this lap.
Exactly.
Yes, and Beninu said it in the comments, 13 cars, DRS train confirmed.
That's going to be one hell of a train, for sure. And the front division of that train, I'd use that kind of expression, is fighting for P2, but if you make a mistake, you may lose a lot of positions. Not go down from P2 to P4. If you make a big enough mistake, you can easily go out of top 10.
Yeah, that is the nature of this split, as we see, and looks like everybody is trying to find a rhythm at the moment, and as I say that, Tim has a bit of a tail moment and lost time to Mr. Hamilton, who is now pretty close behind, but as Tim also has DRS from Marcel in front, it should nevertheless be difficult to get past here on this shortish straight that we have here at the Hungaroring.
Someone make a screenshot of that of all those cars going with the DRS wide open, and everyone using it. So that's probably a picture you would remember for your lifetime. And Brendan Lee already 1.5 seconds ahead. He is having great pace right now and very consistent as well.
Yes, as there could be seen all season from him. Not doing a lot of mistakes and being very fast and consistent. And if he continues this pace, he will be set for another victory. Having a look at the field, we can see there's still everybody pretty much in one line, as you can see here, right in the pack. And we'll have to wait and see when the first of those drivers can make a move to move upwards in the standings here. But for the moment, everybody's just keeping calm for a bit. Although I can assure you they will be absolutely sweating their hands off in front of their PCs and trying to get the most out of the car.
Yeah, also trying to make these tires work, make these tires go a long way. And see, Mr. Hamilton gets a first 3-second time penalty of this race. This is the man in P4. I assume he went wide in turn number 4, and that was it. I mean, of course, he had more warnings before, but that was this one, which earned him a penalty.
Yeah, so a penalty this early in the race. Again, we could see Mr. Hamilton going a bit wide there. And as I wanted to say, a penalty this early is not really what you want, because it puts the pressure on you to try and not make it even worse with more penalties, and it's a bit of a mind game to how much you can still try to push to the limit, but knowing that you don't want to overdo it to not get even more penalties, because that is a thing that can ruin your race, considering how tight it is at the moment, and that would cost him quite a few positions.
And he's already out of that DRS window behind Tim, so he is leading a sort of second train going all the way down to P10 to Fabrizio Donoso. Meanwhile, the other train up front, Tim and Kiefer already 2.1 seconds behind Brendan Lee.
Yeah, it looks like Brendan has the upper hand at the moment, with a bit better race pace than Marcel had, or Marcel has, sorry, compared to how close they were in qualifying. But we'll have to wait and see. Sometimes we'll just have to play the long game, and maybe Marcel will try to come back at the end of the stint, as Fabrizio gets a 3-second time penalty, which is also very early in the race, as we had just discussed with Mr. Hamilton.
Exactly. Yeah, right now we have 2 big trains. Well, the first one is a short one, only 2 cars going for P2, but then this very, very big train going all the way from P4 up to P10. As I've said earlier, Foden was trying to overtake Mr. Hamilton into turn 2, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, he looked a bit feisty there coming into that second turn, although he did think differently. In the end, would have been a bit of a dive bomb, to be fair, just riding on board with him here, seeing Mr. Hamilton and then the podium positions in front. But if he wants to make a move, he needs to be closer. Otherwise, that would just be a serious dive. As Carrick's here, 3-second time penalty. So looks like we might see quite a few people collecting penalties throughout this race, and this might be one of those races that will be decided by who has less penalties at the end.
Yes, there are those two corners I talked a lot already about. Turn 4 and turn 11. It's very easy to run wide there, and as soon as you run out, the game punishes you by giving you a warning. Even if you go slightly wide, you get a warning. So only 3 of those warnings mean a penalty. And that's why we've had already a few victims of that rules. And that's already only lap 8 for right now.
We
And
can
Tim
see
is up
Tim.
52.
Tim just went round Marcel Kiefer like it was a piece of cake. Couldn't see if Marcel had a bit of a mistake there coming out of turn 3, but Tim just literally flew past past Marcel there, and that now means we have a Mercedes 1-2 at the moment, and Tim Marcel Kiefer lost a bit of time there in that battle, which allowed Mr. Hamilton to close back up to those two. So maybe he'll get into that fight for P2 as well. And we'll have to wait and see if Marcel can regain that position that Tim just took off him.
Mr. Hamilton will get the DRS from Kiefer and Tim, but the question is, can he maintain their pace? The lap 9 has started. Formula Danny in the pit lane, and Kiefer closing on Tim. 2-3 tenths behind the Mercedes. Will he try to go down into turn 2? No, they don't. Maybe now turn 3. That's where we presume he's lost his position to Tim. He shows himself in the mirrors, but he doesn't go for it. And all that fighting played beautifully into Brendan Lee's hands. He's already 3.4 seconds up front. Marek with a 3-second time penalty now.
Yeah, and Kiefer is not letting Tim get away with that second position. That is for sure, and we can see there was a bit squabbling going on behind with Mr. Hamilton, Photon and Carrick's there. Although they haven't swapped any positions so far. And looks like everybody can hang on to their position at the moment, although Mr. Hamilton is under supreme pressure from Photon in behind, just as much as Tim is under pressure from Marcel Kiefer there, as we now come around the last corner onto the start-finish straight. And Marcel Kiefer there going for a move up the inside of Tim. And who will be the late of the late break is Tim trying to do the over and under, but gets a bit of oversteer there. And Marcel Kiefer can stay ahead. Now come round to turn 2, that is. And it looks like Marcel can make that move stick. And that's him back into second position.
And at the same time, Photon had a go on Mr. Hamilton, but he tried to go round the outside of turn 1. He lost. He unfortunately didn't go past Mr. Hamilton. So the places in the train fighting for P4 are still the same, and now it's Carrick's is closer to Photon than Photon to Hamilton. It's now 4 seconds lead, and Tim gets a 3-second time penalty for running wide in turn 11. And already Brendan Lee, as I was trying to say, Brendan Lee already has 4 seconds off an advantage.
Yeah, so Tim, the second driver of the current top 5 to get that 3-second time penalty. So that will play into the hands of everybody who is keeping it clean at the moment.
Photon in the pit lane.
As well as is Aresi. So let's see which tyres Photon is going to go on. And it is showing medium tyres. I think his teammate went on the same strategy.
Yes, indeed. They're going on a 1-stop. Pretty surely.
Yeah, so it looks like it's going to be the 1-stop. Now the question, when will our top group of Brennan Lee, Marcel Kiefer, Tim and Mr. Hamilton come into the pits? And the question will be, how strong is the undercut that Photon has now. So we'll have to wait and see as we have this great helicopter shot here of Timp going through the middle sector.
Yeah, and Tim is losing time to Kiefer. He's now over a second behind him, so he won't have the DRS. And he comes into the pit lane. Also into the pit lane comes Mr. Hamilton. And Carrick stays out, Steve stays out, Fabrizio stays out.
Yeah, and our top two, Brendan Lee and Marcel Kiefer, stay out.
Yes, indeed. Tim on soft tires.
Tim on softs.
Yes, and Hamilton mediums. Or on softs. I'm not sure. No, on mediums. Just the lining in the game.
Yeah, it might be Christmas light tires, but it does seem as if Timp actually is on soft. So we'll just have a look here.
Yes, he is on soft.
Yes, he is. So is he running a different strategy? That is the question.
Yeah, and he's ahead of Photon.
Yeah, and also will Brendan Lee and Marcel Kiefer now also come into the pits, as Brendan Lee runs very wide there.
We'll now see going through turn 12, now turn 13, and if Brendan wants to pit, he will have to go into the pit lane after exiting turn 13. No, he still stays out.
As does Marcel Kiefer. So they are on a bit different strategy, it might seem, trying to do the overcut here. And
Carrick's in the pits.
Yeah, Carrick's in the pits in that red Ferrari. And Tim got a 5-second stop and go penalty for corner cutting and gaining a place. That is not what you want to do. So it was difficult to see where that happened and who he overtook there. It might have been Photon, although I'm not 100% certain.
No, he exited the pit lane ahead of Photon already, so that shouldn't be Photon. Meanwhile, Carrick's is out of the pit lane behind Mr. Hamilton, and the Ferrari driver is on soft tires.
And Mr. Hamilton, who was running in 4th, now in 12th after the round of pit stops.
And he's trying to fight his teammate Bono Huys for P11.
Yeah, and Bono still struggling a bit with the F1 league. I myself would have considered him a little bit stronger, considering his other esports performances, and that was 2 penalties right after each other, and I couldn't tell who the first one was. The second was Carrick's, but the other one might have been Mr. Hamilton, because he was right in front of him.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the leaders are in the pits. Brendan Lee is on soft tires, Marcel Kiefer is on soft tires, Marek also came into the pit lane.
And where do they rejoin, especially Marcel Kiefer, since he did the overcut, and that's going to be very close there. And he might fall behind Bono Huys, who is having a look now, who has already heat in the tyres, but nope. Bono is going to stay behind at the moment, and it was essential for Marcel that he stays in front of Mr. Hamilton, but in that pit stop cycle, Marcel lost position to Timp, who is currently in 7th, so the undercut has worked somewhat, but you must remember that Timp has that 5-second stop and go penalty that will be added to his time at the end of the race if he does not come into the pits.
Yes, but Kiefer has now to overtake Photon if he wants to fight Tim, and that may cost him some time. The long overcap has cost quite significantly the leaders. Brendan Lee exited the pit lane less than a second ahead of his teammate.
And Mr. Hamilton and Carrick's going side by side here through the last sector. Carrick's now with the better acceleration coming out of the last corner, and he is on the inside. Mr. Hamilton now going for a bit of slipstream, now going back to the outside, trying to do the over and under on Carex. Now it's going to be important who can get the better run down to turn 2, and that is Mr. Hamilton, who now grabs 11th position for the moment.
And Fabrizio Donoso got another time penalty. He's running right now in P2, and I think that's his second time penalty right now. Brendan Lee, meanwhile, Timp is fighting ACR Raven, and he's up to P6. Same as Brendan Lee, he's gone up to P5, and he's now just behind Formula Danny. Danny is on medium tires. Brendan Lee is on very fresh softs, so it's only a matter of seconds.
It wasn't really a fight with Raven there. You can see he let Brendan Lee and Timp go through, the two fast Mercedes drivers, but now Formula Danny is in the way of those two, and it's going to be interesting to see how fast they get past him, because every lap they stay behind, slow the drivers, they lose time to the guys behind, as Brendan Lee now goes down the inside with the better try grip and goes past Formula Danny there, and Timp will try to do the same as his teammate in a short amount of time so he doesn't get hold up too much.
And this may be very important for the race, because both of Mercedes drivers are on soft tires. They may be doing another stop. Formula Danny is on mediums, and he won't be doing any pit stop, so this might well be for race position at the end of the race. If that made any sense. Well, Timp is just behind Formula Danny. He will surely have the DRS on that start-finish straight, but he is in a little bit worse situation than his teammate. Meanwhile, Marcel Kiefer has overtaken Fotren, and he will try and chase down Raven, and then maybe Formula Danny, as Timp will now have the DRS as we go round turn 14, and let's see how will that help him. Brendan Lee with 118.9 says the fastest lap of the race. Tim with the DRS now. He's too far back to try overtaking Formula Danny into turn 1, but he will still have the DRS going down into turn 2. Let's see. He's too far back to try it here. And the yellow flag in sector 1. And now
The
it's
question
gone.
is, who is that for? And that might be Mr. Hamilton, who now lost a few positions and finds himself in P13. Question is, did he run wide in turn 1? Doesn't seem as if he has any damage to his car, so maybe it was just a driver error, as I lose my English.
It's okay, it's okay. Two Haas up in front, two Haas cars up in front, still going really well. They are presumably trying to make one stop work. It's lap 17 out of 35, so we're approaching halfway distance.
And just as you say that, Fabrizio Donoso is coming into the pits.
And let's now see what will be the tires, all the gear.
And he goes to a set of medium tyres, so that will be a one stop for him. Although he loses quite a bit of positions and finds himself in P12 coming out of the pits.
Yeah, let's see what will be his pace. Brendan Lee, meanwhile, is under a second behind non-runner. Timp is ahead of Formula Danny, so two Mercedes drivers have sort of cleared most of the traffic. Now, Brendan Lee, half a second behind the Red Bull. The Red Bull, who still hasn't stopped in the race, he is on worn soft tires. Meanwhile, Brendan is on still fresh softs.
And you can just see how much more grip Brendan has here, as non-runner runs a bit wide there. And Brendan just having a little look, but deciding differently to hold back for the moment.
Yeah, he will try to use the DRS that a good way. Steve and non-runner still staying out on those very worn soft tires. Brendan Lee with the DRS and already past the Red Bull.
And we have a 4-car fight going on here from 7th to 10th. That is Raven, Photon, Carrix and Bonoise here. And Carrix now having a look up the inside and looks like he can make it stick, although he has to watch out to not run to the Toro Russells in front of him. And would you have a look at another look? And that is, I think, Raven who ran a bit wide there, was it? So Carrix lost a lot of positions again after working hard to get in front and find himself in P10 at the moment. And the current order is Photon, Raven, Bonoise and then Carrix. And you can see how hard that battle is going on for those lower points positions there. And Tim gets another 3-second time penalty, so he will be facing even more seconds added to his time at the end of the race.
He will get that penalty, but he has crucially gone past non-runner down into turn 12. He didn't wait for the DRS, he went past the Red Bull into turn 12, and now he will try to follow his teammate, to follow Brendan Lee, who is now trying to chase down the race leader Steve, who still has to pit. Lap 20 out of 35, that is, so potentially Steve can try to dredge these soft tires and put on super softs later in the race.
Yeah, and non-runner also lost a place to Formula Danny there, and again in that P7 pack we have people going side by side. We can see Bonoise with a big slide through turn 2, and the 3 cars right behind each other, all of them having a look, none of them going for a move. And that is Bono in 10th at the moment, Raven in 9th, and looks like Ressi has joined the battle in P11, and Raven got a 3-second time penalty there going through that section of corners.
Yeah, also Mr. Hamilton got the same penalty earlier.
And again, non-runner losing another position. So it looks like his tyres are absolutely shot, and I would be surprised if he doesn't come into the pits on this lap, and he does. So he will get a new fresh set of rubber and then head out to the final part of the race.
And Steve also came into the pit lane. As I've said earlier, he was trying to stretch out those soft tires, and he puts super soft tires for the final 15 laps of the race. The same thing as non-runner, and Raven, I presume, will do the same.
And Steve was also in the pits, so as it seems everybody did their stops now, and can see that Donoso and Aresi and Hamilton are still battling here, and still quite intense between all of those drivers here. And Steve, who was in pits, nearly got or rejoined right amidst that battle. So he's now behind those guys, but he's on fresh tyres, so that will be another factor to contribute into this points finishing battle, which goes from P7 to P11 at the moment. And Bonoise has quietly moved up into 7th place. So good fight from him there, as we don't want to forget our top positions. Brendan Lee now with a 3-second lead in front of his teammate Timp, but we don't have to forget Timp will have a few seconds of penalties added at the end of the race, so we'll have to have an eye on that. Formula Danny in 3rd, and then Marcel Kiefer, who was in 2nd for quite a bit of the race, finds himself back in P4.
Yes, I don't know if you've seen that. Formula Danny also got a 3-second time penalty, so well, he's still virtually ahead of Tim, who has in total 8 seconds of penalties, if I'm right. But that, of course, is a problem for him, because there is Marcel Kiefer trying to chase him down. And he's doing that really, really well.
And just going back into the battle here, Steve is now in P10 and right behind his teammate Fabrizio, who is on old medium tyres. So I'd hazard to guess that his teammate will let him pass quite quickly. And so Steve can try and attack the drivers in front, who are resting in the Ferrari, and Bonoise in the Williams.
Steve will have a lot of pace as soon as he's led past by his teammate. Both have the DRS, and he still can't go by his teammate. But now down into turn 1, he makes that with a lot of ease. And now DRS wide open going into turn 2. Will he try to overtake RSC? No, he's too far behind. Raven with the fastest lap of the race, 118.5, and oh. What happened to Aresi?
Yeah, Aresi ran wide there, coming through turn 3, and that was a big invitation for Steve to go past. And he finds himself now in P8, half a second behind Bonoise, so Bono now has to watch out from that flying Haas driver there. And we have a yellow flag in sector 2.
He already goes. I'm sorry, he already went past Bonoise, and that was a very optimistic move down into turn 9, but he made it stick.
Yeah, and it looked fairly aggressive, to be fair. So not quite sure if he forced Bono into an error or forced him off the track. But he lost 3 positions due to that, and is now back in P10 in front of his teammate, Mr. Hamilton. And the next driver in front of Steve will be Carex. And we have 12 laps to go at the moment, so you will have a lot of time. And as I say that, Formula Danny is in the pits, and he also goes for a fresh set of super soft tyres.
So that leaves Marcel Kiefer in P3, and to be fair, in P2 already, considering penalties that Tim will have added to his time. Foton in P5 as Marek is out of the session in sector 1.
Yeah, he broke his front wing, and as a answer to that, he has retired from the session.
Yeah. Exactly. Mr. Hamilton with another 3-second time penalty.
So not much has changed at the front in the last few laps. Brendan Lee still leading fairly comfortable with 3.5 seconds to his teammate Timp, who on the other hand has not such a comfortable lead, because he will have a few seconds of penalties towards the end of the race. And then Marcel Kiefer in P3 at the moment, so he might get up into P2 after those penalties, depending on whether he'll get a few penalties as well or not. And Fortin in 4th, and Donoso having a little battle with Aresi here, and Aresi on the inside in the Ferrari, but it looks like Donoso might have more grip even around the outside, coming through turn 2, and that is Donoso in P7, and Aresi has to slot in behind him, and now he has to watch out that Bonoise doesn't try and overtake him as well, because that lost Aresi time. But it looks for now, as if for now, Aresi can stay in P8.
And Carrick is still battling with Photon. Photon is still staying out on those medium tires he put on quite some time ago. His teammate went for a second pit stop, putting on super soft tires. Meanwhile, Photon is still hanging on onto that 4th place. And he has, well, not one car, but he will have a second car on his tail very, very shortly, because Steve is having a lot of pace. And Formula Danny with the fastest lap.
Yes, that is what a fresh set of super soft rubber does for you, and we can see that Photon is now under pressure from Carrick's, but Steve is closing up to those two with huge steps, so he will be in this fight as well, and it is the fight for P4.
I tell you what, this man in the house is very, very quick right now, and he is making huge inroads on these two guys. Going around the chicane in the middle sector. Will he try to make... Look, he tries... Well, maybe he tried to stick his nose. And look, round the outside in turn 10. Will he have the inside in turn 11? Yes, he goes round! And that's Carrick's very, very wide. But that's understandable. And that's Steve up to P5. And he will have the DRS behind Fulton, so he may be in P4 very, very quickly.
Yeah, and that was all initiated by a mistake that Carrick's made coming out of the middle sector chicane, and that has cost him a position and quite some time. Now Steve having a look against Veloce Photon maybe. No, he sticks in behind at the moment, but considering the big grip difference between those fresh super soft tyres and those worn mediums from Photon, Steve might just go round the outside or inside, and some corner you wouldn't suspect that would be possible.
He won't probably go to try and go in turn 4, but there is maybe a possibility of going into the chicane. Will Steve try and go and overtake Photon? No, he doesn't try that, but he is now very close behind him. Turn 9, now the track opens up. Turn 10, then turn 11, and then a short straight down into 10 and 12. That's where he can overtake the Zauberman, and he's so close. Will he try? Yes, he tries. He is down the inside, and he is past Photon. Up to P4, Steve goes. And he's 8.5 seconds behind Marcel Kiefer. I don't believe he may try and chase down the Force India driver, but let's see. 8 laps to go, at least by my calculations. So he has every tool in his hand.
And Formula Danny also already up into P8 after his pit stop, and you can see just how much pace everyone has that who are now on those super soft tyres.
Yeah, also, well, Raven is quite far behind non-runner, but he has those super soft tyres as well.
And meanwhile, Marcel Kiefer has caught up to the back of Timp, who is in second at the moment. And it looks like, oh, that's another penalty for Carrick's. So it might be a bit difficult to see who will finish where, because I must be honest, I have lost track of who has how many penalties until now. What I know is that Brennan Lee, who is leading by 7 seconds, has not got any penalties. And that is the quality of a champion, not to be only fast, but consistent.
And look, Marcel Kiefer goes past Tim on the start-finish straight, and he is up to P2. He is 7 seconds behind Brendan Lee, and he has quite safe second place. Meanwhile, Steve, he's taken a full second out of Kiefer and Tim's advantage, so he may be on the back of. He may finish on the podium today.
Oh, we'll have to wait and see. We have 6 laps and the rest of this one to go. So it's gonna be a question whether he can keep the pace on the super soft. And also gets the 3-second time penalty. He also is already up into P7 and has over. Is in P8, and Formula Danny has already overtaken him as well. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, and Steve is now 6.2 seconds behind them. 6 laps to go as he goes by. So he is taking consistently a full second out of those guys' advantage. He might catch up to them. And remember that Tim has penalties. I don't really think Steve has penalties. So that potentially means a podium finish for the Haas driver. Because Brandon Lee is quite safe at front with 7.5 seconds of advantage over Marcel Kiefer. 5.9, 5.8 seconds now. Steve is behind Tim.
And Photon got a 3-second time penalty, and I guess he is having to push because he has Carrick's right down his neck, and as those two are fighting they have to watch their rearview mirrors because Formula Danny is closing up and he's on those fresh super soft tyres and will try to get past those two, which is a battle for P5 at the moment.
Danny and Steve, both of them have great pace right now. Steve is now 5 seconds behind Tim with 5 laps to go. He may do it. He really can do it. And Formula Danny will have the DRS from Carex. He opens the rear wing, and we go on the start-finish straight. Will he try to go down the inside of turn 1? A late move, and he is up to P6. Formula Danny up to P6, and now the next car to overtake. Oh no, he's down to P. What? I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I really apologize for that. Of course, he is up to P6, and he's just behind his teammate now.
Yes, so Formula Danny now right behind his teammate, and it's going to be the question whether there is going to be some sort of team strategy here. I'd guess no, because they have somewhat of a gap to the next car in front, and we only have 5 laps to go. So even though it is his teammate, Formula Danny won't have an easy passage past. And I just as I say that, he tries to go down the inside there, although that doesn't really work. And now tries to hang it around the outside, but there's just not really grip there. But that turns to the inside now, and he is past his teammate. There was a little bit of contact there between the two, but didn't seem as if Photon lost any front wing there. So lucky for both of them.
And now look at Steve. 3.4 seconds behind him.
Incredible pace there from him. And as I say that, Aresi and Bonoise and also Mr. Hamilton having a 3-way battle here for a single and 2 point as they go 3 wide into turn 2 there. And now the Williams are side by side. Sorry, I nearly set McLaren there, but they are in 2 Williams cars. And it seems as Mr. Hamilton comes out on top in this battle, and Bonoise in 10th, and Aresi now out of the points, and also Non-Runner now behind those two, and trying to get into the battle there.
And Steve now only 2.5 seconds behind him. 3 laps to go as they go by. So he will, if he keeps that pace, he will have a 1 lap of trying to overtake Tim. This is great pace. And Danny also has great pace. He is on fresher super soft tires than Steve, so he might also try to catch the Haas driver ahead of him. 2.1 seconds. That's now how much Steve is behind the podium position.
Yes, and we have begun the last few laps. It's 3 laps to go now, and it's definitely go time if you want to make a move. And Steve might be one of those, as we've said, as he is catching Tim quite incredibly, to be fair. But also we have battles in the midfield with Photon and Carrick's, and Formula Danny gets the 3-second penalty. So as I said, meanwhile it has become hard to predict some positions. Arresting with another penalty here.
But Steve is just 1.2 seconds behind Tim. I think Tim's tires are done, to be fair, because they have done quite a long distance now.
Yeah, Tim tried to do the undercut, and now that is hurting him here at the back end of the race because the tires are so old.
Yes, they are so old, and Steve is already in the DRS window. 7/10 as they pass the start-finish line. Not now, but that's lap 34, so he will still have Steve will have one more lap after that to try and overtake Tim. This is incredible. And Formula Dani is just behind them. He probably won't finish on the podium because of his penalties, but he might fight for it just for the sense of satisfaction. Fabrizio getting another time penalty now.
And you can see how much Steve is all over the back of Tim there. And he actually has to watch out not to run into the back of him as he tries to go past Tim there to the point where we wouldn't expect it. They touch wheels there. And now he's on the inside. They both run a bit wide. And now Formula Dani is also having a look at it. Tim losing 2 positions. Formula Dani trying to go round the outside here of Steve. But Steve can hold on for the moment. Those two both on fresh super soft tires, and now this battle for P3 for the last step on the podium has had a complete turnaround.
This is the greatest battle we've seen all the race long. Formula Dani with the DRS now. Will he try to overtake? Look, Steve goes defensive into turn 1. Formula Dani will try a switchback move down into turn 2 now. DRS in the Zauber wide open, and he will have to hang it around the outside if he wants to take that P3 from Steve. And great display of defensive driving by a Haas driver. Now, turn 4 coming. Blind, fast left-hander. I don't think the Zauber will go by the Haas.
Yeah, it's definitely close between those two. And just having a look at Brendan Lee, where is he at? He has 2 more corners to go now, so we'll have an eye on him coming across the start-finish straight. Meanwhile, Steve and Formula Dani are still duking it out there for P3, and Formula Dani is all over the place trying to get past Steve there. Meanwhile, Brendan Lee coming around the last corner with a big slide and celebration burnout there. Marcel Kiefer now finishing in P2, and yep, he should actually jump to P1 there. I was a bit surprised. And let's see how P3 pans out. Steve in front of Formula Dani, and Photon actually moves up to 4th. Timp down to P6 due to penalties. Bonoise in 7th. Carricks in P8. Non-runner 9th. Fabrizio in P10. And let's see, we're waiting for Hamilton to come across the line. And he's taking his time. And Raven will the last one to come across the line. But very intense final battle there for P3, and Tim moved all the way down from 3rd to 6th in half a lap, or maybe 1 lap.
But what a great race for Steve, and what a great fight for that podium position, the last podium position. I mean, I'm really speechless.
And now having a look at the final standings, and great race there from our race winner Brennan Lee, and another win that is I think 4 in a row now for him. Marcel Kiefer in 2nd place, 7 seconds behind him. Steve also in 3rd, the top 3 without penalties, and then we have Photon in 4th, Formula Dani in 6th, Tim with 16 seconds overall of penalties. And that is definitely not what you want. Bonoise also without penalties finishes a good 7th position. Carricks in P8, non-runner 9th, and Fabrizio Donoso in the Haas round up the top 10 for you. And that was definitely a very tense race. I'm nearly sweating just from watching at it. I don't want to think about how relieved everybody has to be that that this intense race is over, and I'd hazard to guess that we have a few happy and a few sad faces tonight, and we already have people who are ready for interview, so we'll have them in the commentary box here. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So first of all, Formula Danny, that was quite a race with a lot of ups and downs. How was the race for you?
I messed up my qualifying. Hello, guys, by the way. And only my first lap was valid. And because of that, I couldn't start from the front row or the second row. And I started from 6th position. After, at the start, everybody was defending the inside line. And unfortunately, I chose that line as well. And another guy, Carrix, went around the outside of me. That was a nice move from him, but I was basically blocked on the inside. And after I tried like everything to overtake, but I couldn't do that. So I decided to not do the same strategy as those guys out on the track does. So I decided to do a 2-stops race. And I think of the field, I might have had the most exciting race of all, because I had like 24/7 action. And so at the time I had some very nice battles, and I want to thanks for everybody that he kept it fair. So everybody kept it fair, and I'm very happy about that. And good job for the winners and the podium finishers. It was a nice race.
Yeah, and talking about a winner, we have Brendan Lee in the commentary box now. So first of all, congratulations, and a pretty close qualifying session there. Were you ever in real threat, or were you quite happy with how your lap went in qualifying, Brendan?
Well, obviously you always want on qualifying, but as a whole, I'm quite happy with the lap. Obviously, congratulations to my 2 teammates, Marcel and Mads, on the P2 and 3 in qualifying. Unfortunately, Mads had some incidents in the race and he dropped down, but once again, another Esports Plus Cars 1-2.
Yeah, and after that pole position, it was just cosmetic to drive that win home. Was it an easy win from your perspective today?
I don't think any win is easy. I was pushing quite hard during the whole race. I had a few computer issues. My screen kept on getting frozen, and I lost maybe 4 seconds from that. And it was quite annoying because it was going through the high-speed middle sector. The screen would suddenly freeze for like a second, and you don't know anything about where you are. And for all you know, when the screen reactivates, you could be in a barrier. So it's quite scary, and it's quite surprising that this is still part of the game. But overall, Marcel's pace was very good in practice, so I expect him to continue to bang in the really good results, and hopefully we can have some more battles up the front.
Yeah, so considering that technical issues, I'd say very well done for that lead, because it seemed to be quite comfortable, at least. If we just have a look at the lead, and the man in second is actually Marcel Kiefer. So congratulations to you. I don't know if you can hear us.
Yeah, I can. Thank you.
So yeah, solid race from you. Although in the middle, it didn't really seem as if the race would be going as if you wanted to, did it?
Well, I didn't know if my pace was good enough. I mean, I knew my pace was in practice good enough to keep up with Brandon sometimes, but my setup wasn't stable enough in the race, so I took it more easy in the race to avoid any penalty, because I knew that would be the key around this track. And yeah, it worked out. So I was a bit slower than usual, but a 1-2 is good, and it's not my favorite track. So yes, I'm happy. Congrats to Brandon. He did an amazing job, dominated the whole field today. And yes, so I'm looking forward to the next race. And like I said, another 1-2 from Esports and Cars. I hope this continues. And yes, thank you for commentating, guys.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, man.
It was a pleasure for us as well to see this exciting top split action. And for next week, it will be the Belgian Grand Prix. So, Brennan, how do you fare your chances around Spa?
I personally enjoy Spa quite a lot. It's high speed, flowing. You need low downforce for the straight, so your car starts to move around a little bit in the middle sector, what's quite exciting. Overall, I like Spa. It's good for the battles, so look forward to turn 1.
So we're looking for 5th win in a row there, aren't you?
That would be the dream, but obviously Formula Danny is my closest championship rival at the moment, so I just want to continue to extend the points on him each race, then we'll go from there.
So thank you everyone, and also thank you Julio for joining me in the commentary box for tonight. Obviously next week, as I said, we will go to Belgium, and then your usual commentators King-Kodiak and Hamish Sopwith will return to the commentary box, and we will continue doing F2. So I just see we have Timp in as well, so we'll just have him here. Good evening, Timp.
Hello.
So that was a quite exciting few last laps, weren't they?
Yes, it was pretty. I mean, I was saving tires in that time, but because I didn't want to get punctured in the last lap.
Yeah, we were guessing that your tires must have been absolutely shot, because you went from P2 down to P6 there in the end. Tell us a bit, how bad was it really the last, let's say, 10 laps?
I mean, I wasn't pushing at all, so it wasn't really that bad, but I mean, I just pitted too early. I mean, because I didn't do any race run, so I didn't know like how the tire soft is gonna be or so. But yeah, and also yeah, I'm gonna get P6 because I had like most weird illegal overtake ever for a car, what wasn't even there. So I'm gonna like
yeah, you got that penalty for overtaking a car while cutting a corner or something. But we couldn't see what happened there. Could you maybe explain what was the...
Well, I just drive normally, and there wasn't even car, and I just got a illegal overtake. And I'm pretty sure it's because I was teasing with Marek in this race, so that's why.
All right. So maybe you think that could be appealed for the next race.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll have to wait and see where you then end up in the standings. But for now, it is P6, and the penalties were 16 seconds overall at the end. So quite a bit.
Yes.
And yeah, thank you for that exciting race. Thank you, Julio, for joining me.
Thank you very much, and it was a pleasure for me.
And yeah, sorry.
No, go on.
And yeah, as I said, back to normal next week. And also want to shout out a big thank you to your sponsors, Hype Energy and Elgato Gaming, for making these streams possible as they are. And I hope to see all of you watching the AOR streams next week, whether it is PC, F1, F2, or the other platforms. So I wish you a good evening, and see you guys next week. Bye bye.
Goodbye.